Good morning. This April, we celebrate National Poetry Month. It was created in 1996 by the Academy of American Poets. The purpose of celebrating poetry is to recognize the extraordinary legacy and achievement of American poets. We hope that by reading poems from famous poets, both American and international, and some originally written poems by the poets of NAHS, that students will realize the simple enjoyment gained from poetry.
Was born in New York City in 1941. He is the author of several books of poetry, including 9 Horses, Picnic Lightning, and The Art of Drowning, which was a finalist for the Lenore Marshall Poetry Prize. A recording of Collins reading 33 of his poems, The Best Cigarette, was released in 1997. Collins' poetry has appeared in many anthologies, textbooks, and a variety of periodicals. Collins has edited A Poetry 180, A Turning Back to Poetry, an anthology of contemporary poems for use in schools. Collins has received fellowships from the New York Foundation for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, and the Guggenheim Foundation. In 1992, he was chosen by the New York Public Library to serve as Literary Lion, and in 2001, he served as the U.S. Poet Laureate. For several years, he has conducted summer poetry workshops in Ireland at University College Galway. He is a professor of English at Lehman College, City University of New York. He lives in Somers, New York. Introduction to Poetry by Billy Collins. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light, like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say drop a mouse into the poem and watch him probe his way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of the poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is to tie the poem to a chair with a rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means.
Alice Walker was born in Eatonton, Georgia, into a family of sharecroppers. During her studies at the Sarah Lawrence College in New York, she traveled to Africa as an exchange student. Walker is a human rights advocate and is active in the civil rights and anti-nuclear movements. Her most famous work, The Color Purple, earned her the Pulitzer Prize in 1983. In 1984, she started her own publishing company, Wild Tree Press. Walker currently lives in Northern California. Without Commercials by Alice Walker. Listen, stop tanning yourself and talking about fish belly white. The color white is not bad at all. There are white mornings that bring us days. Or if you must, tan only because it makes you happy to be brown. To be able to see for summer, the whole world's darker face reflected. Stop bleaching your skin and talking about so much black is not beautiful. The color black is not bad at all. There are black nights that rock us in dreams. Or if you must, bleach only because it pleases you to be brown. To be able to see, for as long as you can bear it, the whole world's lighter face reflected in your own. As for me, I have learned to worship the sun again, to affirm the adventures of hair. For we are all splendid descendants of wilderness Eden, needed only to see each other without commercials to believe. Copied skillfully as Adam, original as Eve.
Carl Sandburg. Carl Sandburg was born in Galesburg, Illinois, on January 6, 1878. His parents, August and Clara Johnson, had immigrated to America from North Sweden. After encountering several August Johnson in his job for the railroad, the Sandburgs' father renamed the family. The Sandburgs were very poor. Carl left school at the age of 13 to work odd jobs from laying bricks to dishwashing to help support his family. After the Spanish-American War, Sandburg enrolled in Lombard College. While Sandburg attended Lombard for 4 years, he never received a diploma, but he did receive honorary degrees from Lombard. While there, he met and married Lillian Steichen, sister of photographer Edward Steichen. The Sandburgs moved to Chicago, where he began to write and publish his poems. The style that Sandburg chose to write in was free verse. Sandburg has written over 3 volumes of free verse poems. The final volumes of free verse poems by Carl Sandburg were Harvest Poems. Carl Sandburg died in 1967. Fog by Carl Sandburg. The fog comes on little cat feet. It sits looking over harbor and city on silent haunches and then moves on.
God Says Yes to Me by Kaylin Haupt. I asked God if it was okay to be melodramatic, and she said yes. I asked her if it was okay to be short, and she said it sure is. I asked her if I could wear nail polish or not wear nail polish, and she said, honey, she calls me that sometimes. She said, you can do exactly what you want to. Thanks, God, I said. And is it even okay if I don't paragraph my letters? Sweet cakes, God said. Who knows where she picked that up? What I'm telling you is yes, yes, yes.
Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was born in Boston, Massachusetts on January 19, 1809. His father and mother both died when he was younger, forcing him to live with Frances Allan in Richmond, Virginia. Poe attended the best boarding schools and University of Virginia, where he excelled academically. That year, he published his first collection of poems. 2 years later, he published a second collection. Neither of them received significant attention. He began to sell short stories in magazines in 1835, became editor of the Southern Literary Messenger in Richmond. Poe also edited literary journals and established himself a poet, short story writer, and editor. After his wife's death, Poe's lifelong struggle with depression and alcohol worsened, and he later died in 1849 for unknown reasons. His stories mark as one of the originators of both horror and detective fiction. A Dream Within a Dream by Edgar Allan Poe. Take this kiss upon the brow, end in parting from you now. Thus much let me avow. You are not wrong who deem that my days have been a dream. Yet if hope has flown away, in a night or in a day, in a vision or in none, is it therefore the less gone? All that we seem or seem is but a dream within a dream. I stand amid the roar of a surf, tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep. While I weep, O God, can I not grasp them within the tighter grasp? O God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream?
Born in New York on February 21, 1907, Winston Hugh Auden attended St. Edmund's School in Hindhead. There he met Christopher Isherwood, who became lifelong frequent collaborator. After St. Edmund's, Auden moved to Gresham's School in Norfolk, where he began to write poetry. He read widely at Gresham, becoming a great admirer of Robert Frost, Thomas Hardy, and William Blake. If I could tell you, time will say nothing but I told you so. Time only knows the price we have to pay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. If we should weep when clowns put on their show, if we should stumble when the musicians play, time will say nothing but I told you so. There are no fortunes to be told, although because I love you more than I can say, if I could tell you, I would let you know. The winds must come from somewhere when they blow. There must be reasons why the leaves decay. Time will say nothing but I told you so. Perhaps the roses really want to grow. The vision seriously intends to stay. If I could tell you, I would let you know. Suppose the lions all get up and go, and all the brooks and soldiers run away. Will time say nothing but I told you so? If I could, I would let you know.
Born in Akron, Ohio in 1952, Rita Dove served as Poet Laureate of the United States and consultant to the Library of Congress from 1993 to 1995 and is currently Poet Laureate of the Commonwealth of Virginia. She has received numerous literary and academic honors, among them the 1987 Pulitzer Prize in Poetry and most recently the 2003 Emmy Keurig Leadership Award. Heroes by Rita Dove. A flower in a weedy field, make it a poppy, you pick it, because it begins to wilt. You run to the nearest house to ask for a jar of water. The woman on the porch starts screaming. You pluck the last poppy in her miserable garden, the one that gave her the strength every morning to rise. It's too late for apologies, though you go through the motions, offering trinkets and a juicy spot in the written history. She wouldn't live to read anyway. So you strike her. She hits her head on a white boulder. And there's nothing to be done but break stone into gravel to prop up the flower in the stolen jar you have to take along because you're a fugitive now, and you can't leave clues. Already the story is starting to unravel, the villagers stirring as your heart pounds into your throat. Why did you pick that idiot flower? Because it was the last one and you knew it was going to die.
T.S. Eliot was born in Missouri in 1888 and died in London in 1965. Shortly after attending Harvard, his first book of poetry, Prufrock and Other Observations, was published. During this time, T.S. Eliot was known as the most dominant figure in poetry. His poetry was known to compare the English traditions to American. T.S. Eliot is currently known as the most influential poet of the 20th century. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock by T.S. Eliot. Let us go then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table. Let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights, and one-night cheap hotels, and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells. Streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window panes, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its tongue into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys, slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep.
Yolanda Cornelia Giovanni was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, and was raised in Ohio. In 1960, she entered Fisk University, where she worked with the school's writers' workshop and edited the literary magazine. She received her Bachelor of Arts Festival in Cincinnati and then entered graduate school at the University of Pennsylvania. In her first two collections, Black Feeling, Black Talk, and Black Judgment, Giovanni reflected on African American identity. She had received many honors, such as the NAACP Award for Literature and the Langston Hughes Award for Distinguished Contributions to Arts. She is currently a professor of English and Black Studies at Virginia Tech. Choices by Nikki Giovanni. If I can't do what I want to do, then my job is to not do what I don't want to do. It's not the same thing, but it's the best I can do. If I can't have what I want, then my job is to want what I've got and be satisfied. At least there is something more to want. Since I can't go where I need to go, then I must go where the signs point, through always understanding parallel movement isn't lateral. When I can't express what I really feel, I practice feeling what I can express. And none of it is equal, I know, but that's why mankind, alone among the animals, learns to cry.
No te amo como si fueras rosa de salto pacio o flecha de claveles que propongan el fuego. Te amo como se aman ciertas cosas oscuras, secretamente entre la sombra y el alma. Te amo como la planta que no florece y lleva dentro de sí, escondida a la luz de aquellas flores, y gracias a tu amor vive oscuro en mi cuerpo. El apretado aroma que ascendió de la tierra. Te amo sin saber cómo, ni cuándo, ni de dónde te amo. Discretamente, sin problemas ni orgullo. Así te amo porque no sé amar de otra manera, sino así, de este modo en que no soy ni eres. Tan cerca que tu mano sobre mi pecho es mía, tan cerca que se cierran tus ojos con mi sueño. De Pablo Neruda.
Lucille Clifton was born June 27, 1936, and raised in Depew, New York. She attended Howard University from 1953 to 1955 and graduated from the State University of New York College at Fredonia in 1955. In 1958, she married Fred James Clifton. She worked as a claims clerk in the New York State Division of Employment in Buffalo and as a literature assistant in the Office of Education in Washington, D.C. From the years 1971 to 1974, she was a poet in residence at Chopin State College in Baltimore. And in 1979, she was named Poet Laureate of the state of Maryland. In 1968, Miss Clifton's first book of collection of poetry was entitled Good Times, and it was published in the New York Times. It was one of the year's 10 best books. Her children's books now total over 20. She received a creative writing fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts in 1970 and 1973, and a grant from the American Academy of Poets, and she has received the Shelley Memorial Prize along with many others. She has been the Distinguished Professor of Humanities at St. Mary's College of Maryland from 1991 to the present date, and lives in Columbia, Maryland, and has raised 6 children. I will now be reading a poem by Lucille Clifton entitled The Times. It is hard to remain human on a day when birds perch weeping in the trees and the squirrel eyes do not look away, but the dog ones do in pity. Another child has killed a child, and I catch myself relieved that they are white, and I might understand except that I am tired of understanding. If these alphabets could speak their own tongue, it would be a symbol, surely. The cat would hunch across the long table, and that would mean time is catching up, and the spindle would run to ground, and that would mean the end is coming. And the grains of dust would gather themselves along the streets and spell out, these too are your children, and this too is your child.
Kate Northrop is an assistant professor of English creative writing at Westchester University in Pennsylvania. Her poems have been published in American Poetry Review, Northwest Review, Quarterly West, Black Warrior Review, Rattle, and Louisiana Literature. She has received many honors, including the Pennsylvania Council of Arts Individual Fellowship and the 1995 Academy of American Poets Prize, University of Iowa. Her first book, Back Through Interruption, was chosen by Lynn Emanuel for the 2001 Tom and Sam Wick Poetry Prize and was published in 2002 by Kent State University Press. She resides in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, with a cute little dog named Whacker. The Advice of a Dream by Kate Northrop. The dream that escaped the dream went to live in a field. It was happy being undreamt, snapping dead sticks to add to the fire it warmed itself around. All night, in order to stay awake, it counted places. How many oceans, how many mountain trails lined with fern and wood chip with flower, and how many windows in the evening strangely lit. The arms, avenues, estuaries of ancient rivers, markets of spice, cumin, shifting in barrels like sand, like the desert, like anything in open air. It happened that the characters inside the dream mill away awkwardly, lost. They've been knocked from the epic, loosed from the line of plot, from story. The index cards have gone blank in their hands. What's my line? When do I enter? And where should I stand? Evening in the fields, there's the rustle of autumnal husks, and beyond that, a slight creek running. The advice of the dream? It's important to stay unattached to an actual happening. This makes you fleet-footed, able to be everywhere in the world.
Loud Music by Stephen Dobin. My stepdaughter and I circle round and round. You see, I like the music loud, the speakers throbbing, jam-packing the room with sound, whether Bach or rock and roll. The volume cranked up so each bass note is like a hand smacking the gut. But my stepdaughter disagrees. She is 4 and likes the music decorous, pitched below her own voice, that tenuous projection of self. With music blasting, she feels she disappears, is lost within the blare, which in fact I like. But at 4, what she wants is self-location, and uses her voice as a porpoise uses its sonar, to find herself in all this space. If she had a sort of box with a peephole and looked inside, what she'd like to see would be herself standing there in her red pants, jacket, yellow plastic lunchbox, a proper subject for serious study. But me, if I raised the same box to my eye, I would wish to find the ocean on one of those days when wind and thick cloud make the water gray and restless, as if some creature brooded underneath. A rocky coast with a road along the shore where someone like me was walking and has gone. Loud music does this. It wipes out the ego, leaving turbulent water and winding road, a landscape stripped of people and language. How clear the air becomes, how sharp the colors.
If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or be lied about and don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two impostors just the same. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make traps for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken, and stoop and build them with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings, and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there's nothing in you, except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son.
Charles Bukowski was born on August 16, 1920, in Germany. His father was an American soldier. His mother was German. He immigrates with his family to Los Angeles when he's about 3 years old. From 1945 to 1955, he publishes only a few short stories and published his first poetry at 35. He began working for the U.S. Postal Service in 1956, first as a carrier and later as a clerk. During the latter period, he often called his friend, John Martin, editor and publisher of Black Sparrow Press, and tells him, I'm going to die if I do not get out of here. In the early 70s, he is able to quit working for the post office because of a stipend offered to him through Martin and devotes himself full-time to writing. He publishes his first novel, Post Office, in 1971. The movie Barfly, made in 1987, effectively makes Bukowski known to the masses. Of the film he wrote, Barfly is not a great film, but it kicks along. I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and it always makes me thirsty. Bukowski died on March 9, 1994, in San Pedro, California. The rites were conducted by Buddhist monks. Helping the old Charles Bukowski. I was standing in line at the bank today when the old fella in front of me dropped his glasses. Luckily, they were in the case. And as he bent over, I saw how difficult it was for him, and I said, wait, let me get them. But as I picked them up, he dropped his cane, a beautiful black polished cane. I got the glasses back to him, then went for the cane. Steadying the old boy as I handed him his cane, he didn't speak, he just smiled at me. Then he turned forward. I stood behind him waiting my turn.